Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Techgig Webinar series, our endeavor to impart techies. We believe that sharing of knowledge is the key to enhance our skills and grow us as professionals. With this principle in mind, we have initiated a series of webinars conducted by industry experts to give you all a crisp insight of various domains. The topic of today's session is looking at Windows Azure as a infrastructure as a service. And this is the fourth session in the cloud computing series that we have going on Techgig. Our guest speaker today is Mr.Neelesh N Wadke, Principal Education and Research, Infosys Limited. Neelesh is Microsoft Certified Windows Azure Developer and IBM Certified Solution Advisor for Cloud Computing Architecture. He gathers an overall experience of 17 plus years in the areas of information technology and engineering, Windows Azure and application lifecycle management are his key areas of work along with management-related responsibilities. So without further delay, I introduce you all to our guest speaker. Over to you, Mr. Neelesh.
Thanks. Yes. So thanks for that introduction, and now let's get started and look at this topic in brief. As mentioned by the moderator, the topic for today is looking at Windows Azure as infrastructure as a service. Now, when I say this, what are we going to talk about in today's discussion is a brief of what the Windows Azure platform is all about. I also understand that there was a session on Friday taken by Sabah Halim on Introduction to Windows Azure. So I will try to slightly build upon that and give a context to what I'm going to talk about. Many people in this session may not be aware of what the infrastructure as a service is, which is referred to as IaaS, and similarly platform as a service and software as a service. So we'll spend some time on this topic to understand what do we mean by infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service, and how do we differentiate that, and who are the various players today in the market into this particular platform services. And the key focus of our today's webinar will be on the two major features of Windows Azure related to infrastructure as a service, and these two features are virtual network and virtual machines. Basically, virtual network is a service provided by Microsoft on their Windows Azure platform to create a virtual network on demand based on your requirement, and then deploy your infrastructure services like virtual machines and other components onto it. So today's webinar will focus on this, and towards the end and in between as well, I'll show you the demonstrations of how do we do that, and show you a complete end-to-end demo on how to create a virtual network, how do you create a virtual machine, and then connect from a remote site. So that's the agenda for today's discussion. So let's go on further and speak about the differences between infrastructure as a service, platform, and software as a service. So I'm on the next slide. If you see today's cloud computing model, the various services that a cloud service provider offers to its customers. So here are a few of them, not all. What I have highlighted, IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS, is what our focus for today will be. But however, these are the three popular service models that the cloud computing services are broken into. However, apart from that, you also have a security as a service that you see on the top right of the screen. Then you have network as a service, data as a service. Then you also have storage as a service, and you also have a testing environment as a service. So you have various cloud computing models which are there, but as I said earlier, the popular ones are infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service. So let's try to understand and differentiate and compare the three key cloud computing models. So I want to start bottom up on this particular slide. if you see at the bottom, I have infrastructure as a service. Now, when some cloud provider offers a specific set of services, how do you identify whether that particular service is a infrastructure as a service or what it is? So the services offered under infrastructure as a service are the storage services, where you are given a mechanism to store your data, to do some processing of your data, or you have some networking capabilities along with other computing resources. So if I want to compare this with a normal 3-tier deployment architecture, what do we have when you deploy a, let's say, a website? Basically, you need to have a hardware. On the hardware, what you need is you have a OS and a platform where you can host your applications. For example, people from Java background might understand when I say on your OS you have a web server. Similarly, on the Microsoft stack, you'll have IaaS as a web server or application server. So you have a base hardware on which you have a platform like OS and the required software platform to host your application. And then on top of it lies your application. So if I try to compare this analogy, when I say I need a hardware to host my application, so if this hardware support, if this virtualized hardware is what is given by a cloud service provider, then that service is categorized as a infrastructure as a service. Now at times what will happen is you also want that, okay, along with the infrastructure, it will be good for me to get a platform also, so my headache of maintaining the platform goes away. So there are cloud providers which will provide infrastructure as a service, that is your hardware resources. They will also provide a basic software platform on which you can deploy or develop your applications. So when you get these two, hard infrastructure as well as platform, that's where a cloud service provider gets categorized as a platform as a service provider. And then when you move up on the screen, you have software as a service, where great, you have a infrastructure support, you have a platform support, and to top it, you also have applications. For example, you have applications like SharePoint running on the cloud, Exchange running on the cloud. To be very, very simple, Google Mail is an example where you get a ready-made application which you can use, and you just have to start using the application. That's where it comes into the category of software as a service. So there are some buzzwords which you can remember as a key takeaway from this. So basically what you do is, on IaaS, infrastructure as a service, basically you get something to host on. On platform as a service, you get something to build upon. So you get a hosting environment in IaaS, you get a build environment on platform, and you get a ready application which you can consume on the software as a service. So if you see the stack, that you have, basically there are multiple components. Again, starting from bottom, the components that basically you have are servers that you need. You need a storage space, you need virtualization if you want to handle multiple users, and then you need networking support. On top of this, you also need an operating system and a middleware or runtime where you can put your application or your data. So in case of infrastructure as a service, what is managed by you and what is managed by vendor is the key. In infrastructure as a service, the cloud provider, or referred to as vendor, is managing virtualization related activities on the server, storage and networking, whereas you manage, as a developer, you manage the application that is on SAS, you manage the platform where you host your application. So similarly, when you move one level up and consume platform as a service, apart from the infrastructure services, what is also managed by vendor is the operating system, the runtime, and the middleware, which also means that your job of maintaining the OS, patching it up, upgrading the OS to a specific need, installing the required middlewares is taken away from you. That is managed by the vendor. But obviously, as you move up this ladder from IaaS to SaaS, the maintenance cost that you would incur is given to the vendor. At the same time, there are disadvantages of doing that, or in fact I can say there are multiple scenarios where I can use or choose a specific thing. When you go up to a SaaS level, you have less control, whereas when you are at the bottom of the stack at infrastructure level, you have more control. So to summarize quickly on this, you lose control as you move up. From IaaS, when you move to PaaS, from PaaS, when you move to SaaS, you keep losing control on the total environment. Whereas if you talk about the ease of maintenance, that increases. You just have to focus on applications. You just have to focus on how the application will behave in case of SaaS. You don't have to bother about the platform, nor you have to bother about IaaS. So that is the key difference between infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service. So more and more you move to a software as a service, you have rich features provided by the vendor, you have less control, and probably a higher cost because the vendor is going to maintain things for you. So with this, the question comes, what about Windows Azure? Initially, when Microsoft launched Windows Azure, Microsoft provided the platform as a service features. So if you see this, I'm just going to take you to